First January test is failed. Kevin Bowen back, another edition of Kevin's Corner on a Monday morning. Just one pod this week. Well, actually, we'll come back Friday morning recapping the Titans game. But if you want a Titans preview, Beers with Bowen, we'll plug that here early in the podcast. 8 o'clock YouTube interactive on Wednesday night. We're giving away some Colts Pro Shop gift cards and whatnot. So, and then mainly a Titans preview, along with some bigger picture stuff that we haven't really hit on too much in these podcasts. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Chris Presley will be back for that Wednesday. We've gone to the bullpen once again. And Maddie Bowen, outstanding job last week for her. She predicted the Notre Dame victory. And Ryan Bowen is now with me, my brother, my fearless leader. He was right here during the Notre Dame win. We won't bask in that glory too much early on, Ryan, because that could go for about 5 hours. But I appreciate you coming out of the bullpen.
Hey, glad to be here. It only took 3 years coming to get the invite, but glad to be here and help, and glad to be basking in the glory of the victory versus Clemson.
Gosh, I can't believe it's real. But yes, Notre Dame, a big winner on Saturday night. Again, we won't focus too much on that. We might get Ryan's Masters picks to close out this podcast. But let's start with Sunday. Really a tale of two halves, I thought. And we'll get into things I like, things I didn't like. But you felt like, and I don't know about you watching it, but I felt like up 10-7, they were even playing better than that. And just that Jonathan Taylor fumble was such a big storyline in the first half. But you play with fire against teams like the Ravens, and you're going to get bit in the ass, honestly. And I thought the Colts got bit and really exposed in the second half in some key areas.
Well, we talked about it watching the Notre Dame game. I don't want to make this into a Notre Dame podcast, but you have to take advantage when you have the opportunities. You can't kick field goals when you need touchdowns. You can't turn the ball over and have it go the opposite way for the other team, because those are 7-point swings, 10-point swings, 14-point swings. And like you said, the Taylor fumble early was one of those where you could have pushed it ahead and not stepped on their throat, but man, it just would have made it for a longer haul in the second half for the Ravens. But they were tickled to death to go into the half down 10-7.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you go up, you're on the fringe of, and we'll get into the Taylor fumble, but yeah, I mean, you can go up 10-0 there. It could totally change things. And the other thing I think bothers me a bit about losing this first January test that we talked about, when I looked at the schedule in May, I felt like, and I still feel that right now, I thought this was the best opportunity to get one. You had a Baltimore team that I feel like defensively, I mean, the Colts did a really good job, for the better part of 60 minutes. And they were dealing with some key injuries. Calais Campbell leaves the game on second or third play and all of that. So I just thought it was a missed opportunity. Now it's a short week going to Tennessee, and you got Green Bay, and that passing offense scares the hell out of me if I'm the Colts. So just a chance to prove yourself. You look around the AFC yesterday, everybody else won. Everybody else won. That was meaningful. That was not a good Sunday for the Colts. And I thought in the most anticipated half of the season, you just failed and wilted. That was a word that I used. I just felt like you just crumbled. Hell, I mean, Phillip Rivers crumbled on the tackle attempt against Jonathan Taylor, but yeah, just crumbled.
I mean, so disappointing, because what you had heard all week was the 5-2 start is different than last year, and we're going to be better, we're going to be different, and you have this opportunity, and you come out, and you're the dead opposite of what you've said all week. And why should fans not have pause and concern that this is going to start a trend these next 3 games of what we saw last year?
And I appreciate Frank Reich being honest after the game, acknowledging this is an opportunity. And he gets it. He knows full well there's a different measuring stick. And we made the college basketball reference on last week's podcast about you're now getting in the conference slate. And this was a Big Ten game. You felt like you should have won, and it got away from you. And now the margin for error is shrinking. And again, you've been exposed in some areas that better get corrected soon, or else January is going to look a lot different.
Definitely. Well, you want to slide into what you didn't like from the game? So I think the first thing, I'll let you lead that off, Jonathan Taylor's fumble.
Yeah, and boy, Ryan, he's been so good with the ball this season. And that was kind of the knock on him coming out of Wisconsin, or at least maybe a question mark. I shouldn't say knock necessarily, but that strip. First off, what a strip by Marcus Peters. The guy continues to be a high-level player, and Chris Ballard had to look up in that presser and think, gosh, boy, that Kansas City days, he was so good for us. But what a strip, and then what a return. It's one thing just to make the strip, but And I am not expecting Phillip Rivers by any means to make an open field tackle, because that would be, Jesus on earth here in 2020. But if simply Rivers stands up and just Chuck Clark has got to run a different way, all of a sudden you would hope some offensive player for the Colts is going to run him down. And if you're at the 20, 25, if your defense holds him to a field goal, you still feel like that's a mini win. And now that momentum change isn't as substantial. And our listeners know I'm such a big believer in game flow. And I thought that play changed everything. I honestly thought Taylor had a really good first quarter. They got him in space the first play of the game. He had to be over 5 yards per carry in that first quarter.
I mean, that first play call of the game was so great, with everybody thinking it's going
right.
Flip back left. It was, I don't know, would have made me pretty excited for, what the running game might have been to come further into the game, and it just went the opposite direction with that fumble.
He's 5 yards a pop in the first, and honestly, I thought the run he fumbled on was one of his better runs as a pro. Kind of lowers his head, uses 230, falls forward, all of that. But man, I mean, he got benched. I know Frank Reich didn't. I asked Frank that question after the game on Sunday and said there was no discussion between Tom Rathman, the running backs coach, who handles much more of the personnel with his position group over the game. But Jonathan Taylor had one carry, the rest of the game, and that was with 6 minutes to go when Jordan Wilkins was getting looked at by the training staff. So you can't tell me that he didn't get benched for a second week in a row. And you draft a running back in the second round. You trade up for a running back in the second round. You can't afford, especially the Marlon Mack injury, behind this offensive line, you can't afford to have the first 8 games that Jonathan Taylor has given you. It's just, this team is void of playmakers right now, and they're not getting anything from their second-round pick. So, or I should say, not getting enough from him at all right now. And I probably wouldn't have put him in the doghouse as much as they did. I thought that was too aggressive. At halftime, if I'm Reich, I get with Rathman and say, all right, we got to get him back involved a little bit more. Yeah, it's not like Jordan Wilkins was setting the world on fire. I mean, hell, Wilkins was even 4 a carry. No, 3.5 a carry on Sunday. But, man, I mean, that was your biggest key. Frank Reich harped on it all week long. Probably the most I've heard him harp on it all week long this season. Turnover battle, turnover battle, turnover battle. Get them down. He wanted Baltimore to play left-handed. He just goes down there. You're in field goal range. You go up 10-0 at worst, and you have some momentum with him. He's got some confidence, and the rest changes.
Another reason to go back to him is you weren't trailing by much. It's not like you were down 2-3 scores and you needed to pass. You needed to push the tempo. You had plenty of time to have a ball control, clock-consuming drives. Go back to this, which we'll get into later, high-priced, high-drafted, offensive line. Let them change the tides in the game and give Taylor more opportunities. I mean, that's his first fumble in his NFL career. And obviously he had a knock coming in to the NFL based on his college resume, but he's actually produced less fumbles per carry in the NFL, and it's a short sample size of 8 games, but than he did in college. Like you said, you can't stick him on the bench right away and just not give the guy who is extremely talented and who you believed in so much drafting up. You got to give him a chance. You got to give that offensive line a chance.
Look at you doing some research.
I mean, I have to come prepared. I mean, Maddie has set the bar high for the guest potters, and if I don't come prepared, I'm never going to get another chance. So
you're right. This is a cutthroat business here. We don't give many. It's like Jonathan Taylor as a running back. If you screw up, you're out. I mean, this is how we run the show at Kevin's Corner. Chris Presley might be sweating on his flight back from California as we speak. But no, in all seriousness, with Taylor right now, it's just. Man, 5 carries, I think 26 yards in the first quarter. That's a really good number. That's on pace for obviously 20 carries and 100 yards and a touchdown. And yet you had to go away from that, or at least you ended up going away from it. So I thought that was the play of the game, and had to start that off as the biggest thing I didn't like.
Well, let's talk about number 2 thing you didn't like, and that was Phillip Rivers in this offense.
Yeah, Ryan, we talk so much about the yards per attempt number with Rivers. Yesterday, I believe it hovered around 5, maybe even less than 5. Your yards per carry for this rushing offense, thanks to DeMichael Harris helping, 5.3. When your yards per carry is above your yards per attempt, this ain't 1953 NFL football. You cannot have that. I thought it was just the most off Rivers looked. The interception, again, a horrific letter of the law from the NFL. We don't need to beat that to a drum. Again, Tony Dungy said it perfectly today. Get 10 third graders in a room, have them raise their hands, and you can figure out what a catch is or not. I will say credit John Harbaugh for clearly seeing enough of a replay that he felt like that was a challengeable play, and what a difference. But the interception, he should have thrown that ball. And I think what we continue to see with Rivers is just, this is a freaking roller coaster. I mean, that's life with this man at quarterback. And we said it in March. I called it entertaining. Entertaining probably has too much of a positive connotation with it, so it probably isn't entertaining. But it's damn unpredictable. But you're going to get these ebbs and flows. That's just life of him at 38, and it's certainly life with him when you have that wideout group right now and you have a run game that is stagnant at best.
Yeah, I mean, Rivers started the game 6-6. I mean, you would have felt like, hey, this is turning into one of these good performances we've seen, and then he finishes the game 19 of 37. I mean, 51% after starting 6-6. I mean, like you said, this is what fans have to expect, the good and the bad at his age. It's unpredictable. You know, we've seen declines in other notable players in the past where you never know when it's going to be good. You never know when it's going to be bad. I mean, Reggie Wayne and Andre Johnson, to me, are some of the greatest examples in the last 5 to 6 years of guys we've seen fall off quickly and unpredictably. And it's just so Jekyll and Hyde with Rivers. And that's another reason the running game has to be stronger, because you can't put it on his shoulders. And like you just said, the wide receiving crew is just so pedestrian. It's sad. And guys that have shown in good spurts haven't gotten the ball enough either, which is something we'll get into later.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing on the Rivers tackle attempt, which I have to mention this, I thought it reminded me of our dog Rudy in the backyard laying on her back in the sun and just looking up at the sky with her paws, and just, or even Rosie sitting on her mat over here playing at, hitting the little ball that is above her.
So true. Somebody on Twitter had a turtle on its back flailing in the sun, not being able to roll back over.
Jeez. But, in all seriousness, we talked about it on Wednesday's podcast. People will overlook the T.Y. Hilton injury loss. It's significant. This is a mediocre wideout group, and it's largely mediocre quarterback play. We've said it all along. It's an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett, but that's only because the bar was set so low last year with Jacoby Brissett's play. Rivers gives you more of a chance, not much of a chance, especially against these teams. And right now, the play we saw against the Lions, the play we saw against the Bengals, that will not sustain until you support him better. The Chargers supported him with skill group. They invested a whole lot around him, and yet you still had ups and downs. And with this run game where it is, you need a top flight quarterback, and Rivers was never that. No one should have thought he was that. But I thought yesterday he missed Marcus Johnson on the deep ball that I know he wasn't happy with Johnson's route. I don't care. Johnson had created separation from Jimmy Smith. You can feel that. You got to sense that. That ball should have been placed more towards the corner of the end zone. Missed Burton over the middle one time. So, yeah, I just – the sense of urgency with the offense bothered me late in the game. 2 of 12 on third down. It really, really poor from Rivers. And honestly, and I guess lastly about the offense, the state of the offense is this. You have a minimal run game. Minimal. So your chances of 10, 12 play, 80-yard drives are extremely low. And when the passing game doesn't give you the pop, 10 points doesn't shock me. It just doesn't. It just seems like an offense right now that is very average at the most important spots. And in today's NFL, that's quarterback and that's receiver. Some of it is injury-driven at wideout. But this quarterback, it has the chance to be slightly above average at times. But for the most part, it's going to be middle of the pack. And there's going to be roller coaster rides with it. And yesterday was certainly one of the dips.
One other thing to add to that, you mentioned the 2 of 12 on third down. While the Colts were 2 of 4 on fourth down, those two conversions were on the last drive of the game when the game was out of hand.
That was some flukish stats.
So you're 0 of 2 on fourth down when it matters in the game, and Reich has preached how great he thinks their fourth down game planning and play calls are, and just another example of not being able to convert when it matters, and like you said, sustaining drives.
I think we had a 4th and inches question about that play call, so I guess I'll wait for my opinion on that. But lastly, I know there was some debate about, the Colts are spreading the ball around. This is great. Well, give me a freaking alpha. Give me a dude. Go get me Devontae Adams. Go find me a guy that I know. I actually thought this was a great line that Big Joe used on the morning show today. I want a skill player that can call his own shot. Call your shot. Third down, I don't care who is defending you in the NFL. We're going to you. The Colts do not have that on the perimeter. And honestly, when healthy, they don't have that either. That is an issue. The ability to acquire and develop wide receiver, high-level talent has been a major issue for this franchise for the last handful of years.
Preach. All right, let's move on to what you liked. First thing is the run D / the first half defense by the Colts.
Yeah, honestly, Ryan, probably the best, on a short list, one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen in that first 30 minutes of football. You totally stymied Baltimore. 55 total yards of offense. Lowest for the franchise since 2014 and a half. Their run game, non-existent. Grover Stewart, I tweeted it, pay that man in the backfield making plays. The Colts had 9 tackles for loss in the game. I love their discipline up front. Al-Qadim Muhammad had that big sack that took him out of field goal range. That was such a great play. And you honestly got them into the type of game that you wanted. So, really, really good from that defense. And if you would have told Frank Reich at the start of the day, 17 points your defense is going to give up, you would sign up for that. You would 100% sign up for that. Darius Leonard was just, I thought Darius just got worn down in the second half. I really thought the defense got worn down in general in the second half, but Leonard had 13 solo tackles, which is another just absurd number that no one does in the NFL anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I was really, really pleased. I will nitpick a little and say that the second half defense needs to be better. And I know people will be like, oh, my gosh, you're nitpicking like none of. You know Lamar Jackson's last incompletion in the game?
Late second quarter?
9 minutes to go in the second quarter.
That's awful.
He was 10 of 10. In the second half, he was
Lamar Jackson.
Exactly. 50,
not Tom Brady.
54% over the last month and a half.
Not Drew Brees.
Lamar Jackson. He looked like Gardner Minshew week 1. and that's just where, and Frank said this after the game, which I appreciate the candor. Frank's like, we got them in the game we wanted. Stuff the run, which, again, I do not overlook. That was just an incredible job against the most unique rushing attack in the NFL. You got them to play left-handed. And what the Ravens say, all right, we're going to go tempo, we're going to go quick rhythm, we're going to control the passing game. And how many times did he just stick it in Dobbins' gut, pull it out, and there's Snead, there's Andrews, there's Hollywood Brown over the middle. He just got into a great rhythm. And they had 3 straight drives of at least 50 yards and at least 4 first downs. And again, I know your offense was giving you 0 complimentary football.
And those first 3 drives of the second half was really just when the Ravens
took control yeah.
and bled clock and just wore the defense down. I mean, between the plays and the time was so crucial in the Ravens' favor and against the Colts.
8 for 68, 10 for 54, 14 for 75. All of those drives inside the Indy 10-yard line, all of them at least 4 first downs. So, again, the defensive performance was so good in the first half. But I felt like you just got to mention that a little bit. And honestly, you feel bad for the defense because the margin for error right now is just so slim. If you're able to counter with a touchdown or 2, we probably don't harp on that. But where the state of this team is right now, you can't not mention it.
Yep, no margin for error. The second thing you like, Michael Pittman and DeMichael Harris. Let's talk about those 2 guys.
Yeah, those 2 young wideouts, man. 2 totally different stories, 2 totally different body types. But they need the football more. Pittman, I just love. I just think there's a smoothness about him. I like the third down screen that you gave to Pittman early in that game as well. I thought that was a nice little. I'm 6'4", 223, and I'm going to make sure I run like I'm that as well. I thought he did a really nice job, yards after catch there. DeMichael Harris, he should be permanently called up to the 53-man roster. It's a jolt. It's a lateral speed. I played running back and receiver in college at Southern Miss. He's just what every NFL offense needs. Every NFL offense needs a player like DeMichael Harris. You need the lateral speed. You need a guy that can do that after the catch. And this offense is void of that right now. So he needs a permanent call-up. He's worthy of wearing number 12 in my book. What do you have?
2 rushes and 4 catches.
Yeah. And I think I tweeted out this morning, I don't think he played more than 15 or 16 snaps. Yeah. So clearly, and credit to Frank Reich, and we will properly evaluate Frank Reich's offensive day and day as a head coach. But getting DeMichael Harris involved like that, I like. I like that percentage. 6 touches in 16 snaps. It's crazy to think a guy from the practice squad gets that, but that's twofold. One, it's the state of your offense right now with skill talent. And 2, it's DeMichael Harris showing up and being consistent for you. So really good day for him. And I would say, there were some individual bright spots certainly on defense, but offensively, there weren't many. These 2 were bright spots, and I really wanted to make sure that we mentioned them.
Gotcha. Well, let's get into Twitter questions. We've got a full boat to get through on this short week, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
Sergio, hopefully not Sergio Garcia, who just tested positive for COVID in this Masters week. Kevin, no chopping wood this week. LOL. Good morning, my friend. Great 2 pods last week. Your wife did a great job. What happens to Rivers? One week he plays like Manning, and the other Hoyer.
Oh, boy, Manning to Hoyer. Those are 2 extremes. I don't know about Manning to Hoyer. Maybe like Luck to Painter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Luck's too high praise either. Yeah. But man, this is life. This is life with Phillip Rivers, and I will stress this. And we wrote this back in March. We've talked about it on this podcast. If you're gonna give him $25 million, you better support him. If you think you're going to get high level, more consistent level Phillip Rivers, you have got to support him. Because honestly, he's a pretty mediocre quarterback when you don't support him. And we've seen that. So, this is just life. Sorry. This is welcome to can you imagine being a Charger fan?
Yeah.
First off, you watch Phillip Rivers for 17 seasons, especially the last decade. And now all of a sudden you lose these games like you're losing. And Justin Herbert is giving you hope. And yet, God, I don't know if there are Charger fans, but I think Phil Mickelson is one. That might be it.
Yeah, they're too busy at the beach in that awesome city.
Yeah.
All right, Ghost Visible. Due to Taylor fumbling the ball, do you see him getting less reps for a few games until trust is built again? We got played right after that happened. On a side note, how about the Irish?
Oh boy, how about them?
Still basking in that glory.
God, that was beautiful. Man, and you're right. I was nervous. We played with fire there in that first half, and oh man, it's pinched me. I woke up, early Sunday morning and brought Rosie down here. Let Maddie get some sleep, and Rosie, whether she wanted to or not, we went back and watched 15 minutes of highlights, and I can do it again.
Father of the year, right there. We're raising her right in the Bowen household.
She looked great in her little Notre Dame t-shirt jersey on Saturday night. All right, Taylor fumbling the ball. What's he saying? Do you see him getting less reps? No, I don't. The thing is, Tom Rathman, for those that don't know, think horse collar Nebraska football, which means he's already one of my favorite humans ever. But he's no nonsense. And we've talked about ball security is so pivotal in his mind. So I'm not shocked that he benched him, to be honest with you. But I think you got to be honest with yourself this week and say, all right, we got to give him another chance. Like you aren't in this scenario to where, which I think the Colts, the level of accountability they have for some players versus other players is mind-boggling to me. But I just think Taylor's got to get back in there. And clearly you wanted him a big factor on Sunday. He touched the ball the first 3 plays of the game. I mean, there was a big factor. So, it's not like Jordan Wilkins set the world on fire. I thought Taylor's still got to be involved. Maybe more of a split, but honestly, I would still – I think you got to give him another chance.
When Taylor has had 106 carries so far in the NFL, 1 fumble, he actually fumbled more often at Wisconsin than he has in the NFL. So
right.
He's He's off to a better start again, like I said earlier in the pod. Smaller sample size, but until this really becomes a pattern, continue to feed that guy.
What'd you say? Over 100 carries in the NFL,
He has 106 carries in the NFL,
and probably another 20 catches or so. So yeah, I
he
think
fumbled every 60 carries his senior year at Wisconsin.
Yeah. I remember breaking it down when he came out. It was every 53rd touch. I took catches in, do it well. And last year in the NFL, the top 5 running backs, I looked it up, they fumbled every about 90th touch. So, again, better than most, as I use my Tiger Woods Sawgrass Hole 17 reference. But, yeah.
Love the golf analogies. All right, next question from Bragg. When are we going to finally call out Reich's offense for what it is? Predictable? Flat? He's not the offensive genius he's proclaimed to be.
You know, a couple things stand out to me offensively, Bragg, about Frank on Sunday. First off, the first play of the game, I don't think the TV copy catches it. The Colts have no idea what their personnel should be in the game. Literally. Marcus Johnson and DeMichael Harris are like running back and forth like 3 times. And I'm like, this is the first play of the game in the NFL? Like, you've scripted this all week long. You didn't have a bunch of COVID, guys missing practice. How does your personnel not know who's in the game? I mentioned the sense of urgency in the second half, which was or fourth quarter, which was mind-boggling. And then I'll go to the Jacoby Brissett play. All right, so Brissett gets in the game for that Hail Mary. It probably took until about 25 to 30 seconds left in the play clock for Brissett / anyone on the sideline to realize there was a chance he could go in the game. How does that happen? You have no timeouts. You field a punt with 20 or 30 seconds to go. Your kicker is not coming onto the field to kick anything long. Like, clearly that play is in their playbook. How does Brissett not go get his helmet? How does someone not bring his helmet to him? Now all of a sudden he's running back to the water cooler to get his helmet. And then you got to delay a game penalty from it. It's just that prepared stuff for a team that, again, does not have enough offensive talent to overcome it. That can't happen. As far as Reich, the second and long runs and coaching to tendencies are probably my biggest issue with him. I also think the personnel usage of a guy like Hines. Hines didn't have a touch in the second or third quarter, and he didn't have a touch until, I want to say it was 20 seconds to go in the game in the fourth quarter. 1 touch in the final 3 quarters on a meaningless touch. So it's like he almost sits on a Tuesday, I feel like, and is like, hey, Nyheim Hines was so good last week. Baltimore's going to do everything they can to take away from him, so we're just not going to use him. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think it's almost too analytical, too overthinking at times with him. Having said that, I still like some things they do in the red zone. I like the usage of DeMichael Harris, and I really think it's more of a personnel thing at wideout and quarterback. Having said that, he was a huge factor in the quarterback coming here, so I can't absolve him. I would like to see more tempo as well, especially Thursday night. I looked it up today. The Titans had 5 defensive players play every snap yesterday. 5. That is a very high number in the NFL. The Colts typically around 2 to 3. Use some tempo. I feel like that needs to be used as well. So yeah, I mean we've talked about it. This is a huge evaluation year for Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and the seat will get warmer if things don't turn around in the final 8 games.
Next question from Big Bama. Do you think that with the lack of elite talent on offense and defense is why the Colts are in between on being a serious contender or not? Games like this highlight it more obvious to me than other games.
Do you think we can beat Alabama?
That makes me nervous. Very nervous. Won't lie. Still have scars from being in South Florida.
Oh God, I forgot you were there. Jeez, you should have been reading a book like Cheryl Kennedy was during that game. That was abysmal. All right, Big Bama. Elite talent on offense. Yes. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Stop there. Think about your draft picks in the skill groups over the last couple of years. Pittman, Taylor, and Campbell. There's a lot of rookie skill player or young rookie or second-year skill players at wide out and running back. You're going to see one Thursday night. A.J. Brown is a flat-out stud, and you just aren't getting enough from that group. So again, I'll say what I said earlier. I laugh at people that are like, "Oh, spreading it around is great." If you've got the alpha, the other people should show up just naturally playing off that.
Drew Brees hammers it to Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara play after play after play. Not as much this year, but everybody knows it's going. Everybody knew the last couple of years he's getting the ball to those two guys, and it hasn't affected their ability to just torch defenses.
Well, look at last night, and I didn't watch a whole lot of the game, but again, Kamara, like you said, and Michael Thomas is back. And who scores their touchdowns? Troutman, Traymon Smith, Hill. Like, it's not necessarily – you naturally are going to have that stuff fall into place as long as you've got the dudes to draw some attention. And I will say that – and this is probably more of an off-season focus, but Chris Ballard has had some really nice draft picks. But moving forward as a perennial winner, if you're going to be that, you better draft like Baltimore has. Baltimore's drafted incredibly well as mostly a winner. And if you're going to have sustained success while you search for the quarterback, that's got to be huge.
Richard, are Buckner and Stewart the best defensive tackle pairing in the NFL right now? Secondly, why has the offensive line performed so horribly in the run game with the same starters as last year? Is it lack of faith in Taylor compared to Mack or something else? Love the pod and listen every week from the United Kingdom.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Richard, for that. Means a lot. Boy, Buckner and Stewart, I put them right up there with anybody. And they give you production in the run game. It's not just clogging it. It's getting off blocks and making plays. Stewart had to have had a couple tackles for loss yesterday. Yeah, he had two. Gosh, 9 tackles for loss is a lot.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, they are, yes, I'd put them up there. Why has the O-line performed so horribly in the run game the same start as last year? Yeah, it's maddening, this offensive line performance. I did think the run blocking was a little better yesterday. Not great, but a step in the right direction. I think it's a ton of factors. The lack of faith in Taylor, that's a really kind of harsh comment. Like, is the O-line going to block worse because Taylor's in the game? Like, it's not like that. I just agree with the Jeff Saturday comment that he's talked about a whole lot this year. This is a unit right now that whatever is blocked up front, that's what the running backs are largely going to get. So, but yeah, I do think there's just a you just aren't getting enough from that O-line in the run game. I don't think it's like the biggest issue whatsoever, but still, it's something that has to get better if you're going to support Phillip Rivers.
Next question, Leroy wants to talk a little NFL draft. Would you agree that the next draft needs to be QB, then wide receiver in rounds 1 and 2?
Well, looking at it just like that, I would say yes, it makes a whole lot of sense. But then I'd also sit here and say, what about trading up for a quarterback? Or do you have that second-round pick? What does that look like from a draft capital standpoint? Left tackle and edge rusher would still be a couple positions that I'd have top of mind. And part of me is like, man, are you really going to draft a receiver in the second round for a third straight year?
Yeah. Ooh.
But you have. I mean, this is the biggest problem with Ryan Grigson many times with his personnel moves. You got to admit your problem. Admit your problem and move on. Chris Ballard, I think, knew pretty early on Terrell Basham wasn't going to work out. So what's he do? He drafts 3 defensive linemen in the second round, the next 2 drafts. So you got to admit it and you got to move on. But yes, Leroy, in a vacuum, yes, but trading up for a quarterback is still something I think about.
Alec, what's more embarrassing for Colts fans, losing to the Jags in week 1 or that Brissett play to end the first half where he committed 2 penalties on the same down?
Oh, my God.
I love this question.
Jeez. That's a great one, Alec. It's got to be losing to the Jags. They haven't won since. But still, that Brissett play. People know on this podcast what I think of Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback. I do feel – well, I feel somewhat bad, even though I look at how much money he's making. I guess I don't feel that bad.
Nope.
But, man, he's been thrown into 2 situations this year where it's just been – yeah. I guess it was a screen. Did you realize it wasn't even a Hail Mary?
No, I thought it was a Hail Mary.
Yeah, it was a screen.
We're going to call a screen from the 50-yard line?
Yeah, and they were bringing 5, and you hope you can somehow you got 3 blockers out there, and the Ravens will. I don't know.
That goes back to overthinking.
You think you're gonna? Yeah. And part of me thought, and I know you weren't in field goal range, but man, how great of a weapon Justin Tucker is.
Yeah.
Like you didn't even. It wasn't even a thought the Colts were going to kick a field goal no matter what. Plus, I hated like the little dump over the middle. I like to have seen a sideline play there at first. Try to get 2 offensive plays before the Hail Mary or Hail screen attempt. I don't know if you think you're Rutgers or what.
Yeah, weird. Joe, why does the Colts offensive line get all this publicity that they are the best? When I watch good defenses against them, they can't pass block at all.
Well, I would strongly disagree with that statement, Joe, about the pass blocking. I thought the protection was really good yesterday. No sacks. Yeah, Rivers. And I think he was only hit twice. Judon, I think, got him a couple times. But, yeah, I thought the protection was great. And really, it's probably – no, it's not even probably. It's easily the best aspect to this offense right now, which makes it even more maddening that you can't pass the football on a consistent basis. As to your first point, why do the Colts offense line get all this pub? I tried to be honest during the offseason, and we had a whole segment on the podcast about the run game was really good. It wasn't elite last year. And people push back at me for that. And I'm like, no. Look at playing the top defenses. This run game wasn't at that level. And the other thing I'm worried about, Ryan, is what happens when just normal offensive line health starts to happen. Look at Thursday night. Taylor Lewan, gone. Roger Saffold gets hurt yesterday. Look at Sunday against the Ravens. No Ronnie Stanley. The right guard gets hurt as well. I mean, the Colts haven't had that. Costanzo for 1 game, and you're at the midway point of the season. So I think you got to hold your breath a little bit with that. I mean, 1 guy gets rolled up, and now all of a sudden, Danny Pintner and LaRaven Clark you got to rely on them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been an incredible run of health the last year and a half for this offensive line. At some point, just water's got to find its level.
Oh, boy, we got a long one here.
Yeah, I didn't even know how this fit into all 280 characters. But from Root, I know you always talk about how Rivers gives you a higher ceiling than Jacoby, but it seems like he's been the limiting factor for this offense time and time again. He's good enough against mediocre teams like Detroit, but he doesn't have the mobility or arm strength to go toe-to-toe with elite defenses, even ones that are missing key pieces like Baltimore was on Sunday. Not to mention the flat-out missed throws and bad decisions that lead to interceptions and missed opportunities. I really don't see any benefit to bringing Rivers back next year, unless it would be just to mentor a young quarterback, and there would certainly be no reason to pay him what we did this year.
Well, Roop, I could not agree more with that last statement. I'm sorry, I don't see the benefit. And honestly, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, Ryan, I mean, isn't he just going to kind of deteriorate a little bit more physically? Unless he's going to go get shot up in Europe with something. I don't think all of a sudden he's coming back and just going to have this resurgence physically. So this is him. It is a slight upgrade from your quarterback play last year, but still, it's not enough that I think can get it done in the month of January against these sort of teams.
It's too hit or miss, and it'll just be more hit or miss next year. And that's just the reality of having a 38-year-old quarterback that has always moved like a statue.
And you're delaying the inevitable. And the mobility part in today's NFL is just so critical to me. So the fact that you have $46 million of cap hits invested in your starter and your backup, and you're getting this quarterback play, boy, for those in the business world out there, the old ROI on that is, yeah, that ain't good.
Alex, is Frank Reich a good coach? Simple as that.
Well, he didn't need 280 characters here. Alex was straight and to the point. I appreciate that, Alex. I think he's a good offensive mind. And I know, obviously, there's a lot of evidence to go against that this year. I point more to personnel, which I'm not absolving Reich in that because he's had a lot of say in this personnel. But I will reiterate what I said earlier. These final 2 months are big. No one wanted to talk in the offseason about Reich and Ballard and what they've done without Andrew Luck. And I guess I should say, well, yeah, both of them. Reich coaching Andrew Luck, obviously, that first year. No one wanted to talk about that. We tried to harp on it and say, this is what you're going to be evaluated. The honeymoon and the excuses, those are gone. That is done. We are now going to find out. And I've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it earlier. And this it might sound harsh, and I'll probably get some pushback on this. I don't think Frank Reich challenges the Marcus Peters interception. I don't. I don't think he's that in tune game management over 60 minutes to throw that challenge flag. And it goes back to kind of what I've said before about finding a head coach who doesn't call the plays defensively, doesn't call the offensive plays. They can watch all that. They can observe all that. Tomlin, Belichick, Harbaugh, Wink Martindale's on defense, Greg Roman's on offense. John Harbaugh can just stay locked in on game management, timeouts, challenges. And while that challenge and the overturn is just unbelievable to me, he knows the letter of the law. He clearly had someone in the booth, and I think they even showed it inside the stadium when they slowed down that replay, and he threw the flag. And it's funny because when you watch the TV copy, Charles Davis and Ian Eagle, they don't even mention it as a possible INT, but yet John Harbaugh knew that. And so that's what concerns me a little bit about Reich, is just the full grasp of that, which puts more pressure on him offensively. Because if you're not going to be maybe a big advantage there, that can come back to bite you. I know it hasn't really done it in a lot of games, but it still is concerning to me. But as I said earlier, I mean, these final 8 games, big, huge.
Zach, why are we passing on 4th and 1?
Was it even 4th and 1?
Yeah, 4th and 6 inches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pull up that play and see if it was even 4th and 1. What did you think there? Okay, so it's 21-10 at that point, and there's like 6 minutes to go, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think kick field goal?
I did, just because I felt like you get it to 8 points there, 1 possession game. But absolutely, if you're going to go for it, you run it. You can't run some play-action passing type of scenario. I just thought, again, overthinking, getting too cute by Frank Reich again. So I didn't have an issue going for it. I had an issue passing it, but probably would have kicked the field goal.
Yeah, it was, well, I guess it was close to a yard. Maybe not 6 inches. We'll give it 10 with where the nose of the ball, as Ryan Kelly brings it back to a full yard. My issue was this, okay? First off, your wideout on that play, folks, Reese Fountain. I mean, Baltimore, Jimmy Smith's probably like, wait, what? I got to guard it? Like, that ball's not going to Reese Fountain. So you've totally eliminated one wideout there. And now that I look at it again, the Colts had an unbalanced line. It looks like that's Braden Smith over at left tackle. I didn't realize that at first glance. Yeah, he's out. He's to the left of Costanzo. So you do
Pinter's in the backfield.
Right, Pinter's your little offset fullback there. Okay, what I don't love about it is this. It's one option route, and it's Trey Burton going through trash. I mean, that is a slow developing. Burton's your only guy on the backside of that play. No, I'm with you. I thought going for it was a smart play because you're at the 16-yard line. It's not the 33. This is your best chance to score a touchdown. I'm sorry, in the final 5:35. I was fine with them going for the TD.
3 timeouts.
Yeah, but still, I don't think this offense is moving at another 80 yards or
That's fair.
However many that you need to go here. But this is first off, it's 2 things. Phillip Rivers, can you QB sneak it? He doesn't like QB sneaking it. Like, this is a thing with him, so they don't QB sneak it. Secondly, 4 top 40 picks. You trade up for a running back in the second round, and on 4th and 10.5 inches, you're throwing it on a day when you've actually ran the ball decently well, over 5 yards per carry. So, yes, I don't have Zach. I agree. I don't know why you're passing it in that situation there. Calais Campbell's out. I mean,
and every chance they get, they scream from the rooftops, run the damn ball, and when you needed it the most, you didn't do it.
And this is probably the overthinking stuff.
Exactly.
This because when you watch the play, I mean, it needs about 4 seconds for Burton really to get through all of it. And certainly the Ravens had great edge pressure on the play, and I actually think Judon or McPhee somewhat read it. But I mean,
just got to be men and just blow them off the line and get 12 inches.
12 inches.
Gary, after scoring 2 TDs last week, Hines touches the ball 3 times. Also, give me more of DeMichael Harris. Congrats to your Irish.
Thank you, Gary. That means a lot. I think I've worn the same Notre Dame shirt 2 days in a row now.
Love it. I wore the same thing to church that I wore Saturday night.
God, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I don't get it, Hines. I don't at all. I said it earlier, 3 touches in the first quarter, and really, he sparked you a bit. 2 grabs for 20 yards.
Yeah.
Had a long of 17. It's just, I think Hines has earned a 5 to 7 touch package. Not even package. Honestly, you should have offensive goals each week, and Nyheim Hines touching it 5 to 7 times should be a goal that must be checked. That should be. I understood why it wasn't always a consistent part of your game plan. It needs to be now. Without Hilton, without Campbell, without a consistent run game, that to me has got to be a barometer.
Chris, and he's got 2 questions, so we'll take these one at a time because this is a novel. Number 1, I love Reich, but if we had to name a weakness, perhaps it is in game plan calling. Scheme and play design are excellent. Do you think there is any chance he gives more responsibility or outright turns play calling duties over to Sirianni in the future?
Chris, it's a fair question, and my answer is in no way, shape, or form criticizing your question, but there is 0 chance. Frank Reich has been a play caller his entire NFL life of substance, really ever since I think he left Arizona to go to San Diego in 2013. So, no, he is going to be a play caller. It's funny. I remember at training camp one year asking Frank, I think I asked him in the scrum, but then he hung around afterwards and kind of pulled me and a few others off to the side and wanted to talk about it more. I asked him, I'm like, it was week 4 of the preseason. I'm like, would you ever let Nick Sirianni call plays for the week 4 preseason game? That's something you kind of see. NBA teams let the assistants coach their teams in summer league, stuff like that. And he was like, no. And his thing then for no was, that's kind of just a no-win situation. Nick Sirianni's calling plays for Philip Walker running for his life for 60 minutes. It's just, it's not great. But no, I mean, this guy called plays in the Super Bowl. He's not giving that up.
Here's a question for you that goes along with that. This might be getting too nerdy, but added Mike Groh to the coaching staff this year. Kevin Patullo took on a new role with the passing game coordination. Any way that has played into the struggles offensively compared to last year? Are we putting too much?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a thought I haven't really, like, too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing. Is that where you're going?
Or just, again, we've gone away from what's worked. Googe was working great. Went away from that. Went away from Patula with the wide receivers. So are we overthinking?
Yeah.
Said, too many cooks.
Okay, 2 things for me offensively. I do think there's a bit of overthinking at times from Reich, but I also just don't love this personnel at wideout and quarterback. It's
totally
just
fair.
In today's NFL, if you're average at those 2 positions, you are going to get exposed. Look at the top 10 teams in the NFL right now and tell me who is average at quarterback and wideout.
Yeah.
I mean, no one. I mean, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, obviously the AFC teams, Kansas City, and Tennessee, I guess you'd throw in there. Yeah. But, when you have this historic running back in Derrick Henry, that's just totally different. But obviously you'd put Pittsburgh and Baltimore, maybe average as a thrower, but Jackson's so damn dynamic that he doesn't qualify as that. So it's a good question, Chris. But again, I'm talking you from what I think Reich would do, and I'd say no chance.
Chris's second question, given the rise of ultra-athletic quarterbacks like Jackson and Murray, do the Colts consider keeping Malik Hooker and move one of the 3 starting-level safeties down to a hybrid linebacker role to better match up athletically and complement Darius Leonard? Love the podcast. Keep up the excellent work.
Chris, send in more questions. These are good. The second one is a very interesting thought. Would you then take off a defensive lineman? He wants to play 3 safeties?
He wants, yeah.
Because, Leonard and Okereke, that's the duo for the next handful of seasons. That duo's not going anywhere. So
Leonard's already pretty thin for a linebacker. You're going to have a 215-pound
right
next to him? Because you can't take Leonard off the field.
Well, no, and I'm okay with that unless you're playing, like, Tennessee or Baltimore,
yeah.
really. I think it's an interesting thought, and I'm all for defensive creativity with personnel groupings, but it's probably a no for me. Again, I just think the Hooker Colts marriage is over.
Yeah. Dara, last year the Colts staff said they were the momentum team when they were 5-2. Ballard seriously addressed the D-line, but I can't shake the sense the offense still relies on momentum this year. When they are good, they're good, but when they're bad, they're very often 3 and out. Thoughts?
This is our guy from Ireland chiming in here. I honestly, Derek, don't think it's necessarily does the offense rely on momentum. I more think is the offense that good. Over the course of 16 games, you're going to find out who you are. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and then over time, we're going to get kind of a clearer picture of, okay, what's happening more than the other. So, especially when you're facing the teams like you have faced on Sunday and are about to face. And that's what I think was disappointing about the offensive performance yesterday. Did I expect this team to score 30? No. But without Marlon Humphrey, with Calais Campbell getting hurt, and 6 or 7 guys not practicing all week, I thought you'd get better, especially at home. This offense has been a lot better. And if you'd told me at the start of the day, Ryan, 5.3 per carry,
yep.
Oh my gosh, that.
Yeah, to control the ground game against that offense.
Yeah, Frank Reich would have signed up for that in a minute.
Yep. All right, Jordy, what would be the maximum you would give up? In a draft question, what would be the maximum you would give up to trade up for number 1 to take Trevor Lawrence from Clemson? Me and my friends were debating this. They were saying they would give up 4 first-rounders to get Lawrence. I said that was ridiculous to burn that much draft capital for one player, no matter how good. I might be able to be talked into 2 first and 2 second-rounders, but even that seems steep. So what is the maximum you would be willing to give up?
Boy, Jordy, I agree. 4 first-rounders seems absurd to me, right?
Unbelievable.
And really, 3 seems kind of steep, And I guess if I'm going to say I'm drafting 32 overall, which is kind of quite the goal for Trevor Lawrence's first couple seasons in the league. I think Trevor Lawrence is damn good, but I'm maybe not as infatuated as him as the Luck, Manning, Elway sentence he sometimes gets thrown into. And honestly, I kind of like some of these other QBs. I'll tell you what, I watched that kid a little bit Friday night from BYU. Zach Wilson, he's intriguing. I'd mentioned Mac Jones before as a guy that I probably want to watch a little bit more. I know some of you have asked me about Kyle Trask from Florida. Obviously, Justin Fields and Trey Lance are guys that we've talked about. But, yeah, 4. Sounds like a Mike Ditka run draft. Yeah, I can't go there, Jordy.
JJ, why so many behind the line of scrimmage and 1-yard passes when you're down by 14 and time is running out?
Dude, it looked like JJ, thank you for the question. It looked like, one of those Colt Week 17 games with Peyton where they just throw it to guys to get their stats for the season. It's like, oh, gosh, we need Reggie Wayne to catch 5 balls, and then we got to get him out of the game so he gets 100 catches for the year.
Or how many games in a row he had 3 catches, and he's only has 2 with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, it looked like that. I was like, what is this sense of urgency? It looked like, Navy trying to come back down 21. That was JJ. That was what?
Puzzling. Chris, if you were the GM, are you going all in with Rivers, surrounding him with more talent, or are you trading up for a young QB to get a 1 year behind Rivers? And what do you think Ballard will do?
Okay, me personally, I'm trading up. No doubt in my mind, I'm trading up. To me, you cannot delay the biggest question in any sport franchise roster building, and that is who plays quarterback for your NFL team. That is the hardest question to answer in professional sports. I'm not delaying it another year. Having said that, Ballard would probably be more hesitant than I am. And, I just look around the league yesterday. Look at the dynamic quarterback play you saw up and down the NFL yesterday, especially some of the young guys. Obviously Herbert, Tua and Kyler going at it. You just got to have it. So I get it. You want to create a nice environment for that QB. I think this environment is better than most, certainly, for a rookie quarterback to come into. It needs some tweaks for sure, but yeah, get the clock started.
Craig, hey Kevin, I'm growing really concerned about the near and long-term prospects of the Colts QB situation. Rivers is literally a statue, and in this league, the teams that succeed have a QB with some escapability, especially as we play tougher defenses. What worries me long-term is, does Jacob Eason have any ability to run away from pressure, or are we going to be in the same spot for the next few years?
Yeah, Eason isn't doing anything with this. I mean,
No.
he's Stafford. He's Matt Ryan. I don't know. Instead of maybe kicking his legs up in the air, maybe he gets an arm out like, Big Ben on that tackle attempt. Something. That was, I probably shouldn't have brought that up. It's interesting. I remember going back to the Ballard Reich quarterback trait question that I thought was interesting last year. Reich, I don't think you really mentioned much of mobility or making plays with the legs or anything like that. Ballard mentioned it a little bit more, but to me, it's a prerequisite to having long success in the NFL.
Jordan, hey Kevin, Jordan from Texarkana. Side note, one of my favorite names of a city in the United States. Don't ask me why, but Texarkana is a really cool name.
So is that on the border of Texas and Arkansas?
You bet. Half the city's in Arkansas and half of it's in Texas.
Really?
Right in between Dallas and Little Rock.
Jordan always mentions where he's from, so I appreciate that, Jordan.
He's a proud Texarkanian. What stopped this team from being explosive on offense? Defense played well enough in the first half to basically shut out the Ravens' offense, and yet our offense put up yards, but not many points for the rest of the game. The offense seemed dead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, again, it's a mixture of the quarterback play and a little bit of your wideout group. And, yeah, I mean, early on, you moved it, I feel like decently well.
201 total yards of offense in the first half.
I mean, that's a great number against that defense. I mean, you settled for the field goal there, kind of late second quarter. But, man, that Taylor fumble, that was such a big play.
Yep.
And Baltimore's I mean, to give them credit, they are very good. So, yeah.
This is a / Jack and Scotty both had similar question. If I'm Ballard, I'm bringing back Mac on a big 1 year prove it deal. You agree?
Prove it deal, yes. Big, no. No, I'm not giving him an absurd amount, but yes, prove it deal. I'm bringing back Marlon Mack. It's funny how injuries, and I thought Taylor would produce really well, and I was wrong. It's funny how injuries can kind of make you forget or long for players. And in the case of Malik Hooker, it's forget. In the case of Marlon Mack, it's long for.
You don't always appreciate them until they're gone.
Right. And especially that position, we kind of quickly just write them off. But yeah. Good question here. Let's go a little quicker pace here to close them out, but we'll get through the rest of these.
All right, Bailey, why doesn't Indy get any primetime games? Last home primetime game was on Thanksgiving 2016. Last primetime game on a Sunday or Monday was 2015.
Preach. It's a joke. I've talked about this before. Jim Irsay has certainly talked about it. The Thursday night games don't count for me.
No.
Is it the fake punt curse against the Patriots? Maybe the Colts, again, I've said it before, maybe they're grounded for a handful of years. But what's shocking to me is the NFL created schedules in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, thinking Andrew Luck was the Colts quarterback. 4 years. 4 years. And you don't get a Sunday or Monday night game with Andrew Luck?
Yep, pretty wild. Tanner, would you rather see Quentin Nelson rush for a touchdown from the 5-yard line or see Old Man Rivers catch a touchdown from Trey Burton, Philly special style?
Got to be the last. I mean, you imagine Rivers laying out in the end zone for a ball. I mean, Nelson 5 yards, that's pretty long.
Yeah.
But, I mean, literally, Rivers running it, or Rivers catching a pass. I mean.
Yeah, sign me up for the latter.
Isn't his last rushing touchdown is like 6 years ago?
Gosh.
I thought he was going to run the other day or yesterday when and then he missed Burton in the open field. But, yeah, that'd be a sight to see.
Skelly, do you think JT holds the bulk of the job, or are we headed for a committee approach?
I thought he was talking Justin Thomas.
I did too. I had to really read that carefully.
Okay, does he think Jonathan Taylor holds the bulk of the job, or are we headed for a committee approach? I think Taylor maintains more carries than Wilkins. I do moving forward. You sit down with him this week. You look at the full body of work. You say, all right, he's held on to it pretty well. we need to try. We need to hope he breaks through, finds that moment to where he feels like he belongs in the NFL, those things. It's interesting. I don't think I mentioned this earlier in the pod, but watching J.K. Dobbins versus him yesterday, Dobbins' ability in the shorter areas to make guys miss, subtleties with his cuts, that to me is a step ahead of Jonathan Taylor. And I honestly think a lot of it has to do with, and this goes with DeAndre Swift or Clyde Edwards, some of these backs, Taylor at Wisconsin, he didn't deal with a whole lot of trash in the backfield. It wasn't, they run it. And so his ability to kind of create yards wasn't really probably his forte in college, not something he certainly had to do on a frequent basis. And I guess that kind of worries me when your offensive line isn't going to be just this crazy, great blocking attack.
Jim, being from Texas, I know I'm a Ben Banigou homer, but don't you think that the Al-Qadim Muhammad has not been productive enough to double Banigou's playtime? I like AQM's effort, but averaging 35 to 40 snaps a game, I think you give those to Ben. He's far more productive. I think the same about Autry, but he does seem to make more plays.
It's funny, Jim sent me another note. He sent this before Sunday's game, and he sent me a note last night like, maybe my question's wrong.
I'm glad to hear it. AQM was so good yesterday.
Yeah, he was. He's got to be a re-sign guy. So Banigou, and I know I said this during camp, he just doesn't pop for me. And it's weird. His production, it's not horrific. I think it's 6 tackles on the year and like 80-some snaps. That's not terrible for a defensive lineman. I mentioned the rush he had on Joe Burrow on that overthrow that Blackman had to ice the game. But, again, it's just not enough for me. The Colts drafted him thinking he could be a linebacker. That means freak athletic traits for a guy his size to play linebacker. And I don't see that when I watch him at all. He's not the athlete Kamoko Toure is. So, and then now you got to think Toure is either going to play, I don't know, maybe he doesn't play Thursday, but he's got to be back for Green Bay, you would think, at the latest. So now where does that go for Banigou's role after being a healthy scratch yesterday? And I will say this, just, Ballard obviously cut ties with Basham early, but then you can look at Tyquan Lewis and you're like, wow, third year, he finally developed. There is a history in this league of kind of multi-year, it takes a little while for rushers. And then obviously, and you can look at this twofold. One spectrum, Jerry Hughes. Another spectrum, Bjorn Werner. Mm-hmm. It's a tough balance. I just haven't seen enough from Bane. It's not Bjorn Werner, but it's, I don't even know if I've seen a Jerry Hughes flash. Like Toure has shown me more as an edge rusher than Banigou has showed me, and they probably have played similar amount of games considering all the time missed for Toure.
Couple more to go. Jason, one offensive and one defensive question each. Underperforming and overperforming player based on your expectations on both sides of the ball.
Okay, offense overperforming, I'd probably say DeMichael Harris. I know it's only been 2 games, but to be honest, it's a group I don't have a lot of great answers for. Underperforming, certainly the O-line. And I'd put Nelson, Kelly, I'd put those 2 guys in that group. Defense, boy, where do you even begin of overperforming? Stewart, I'd put Xavier Rhodes, Julian Blackman.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot. Underperforming, I guess a little bit of your edge rush. Probably Houston.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But, yeah, you're kind of nitpicking.
Did he do anything yesterday? I didn't feel him at all. He's kind of had a quiet few weeks, Houston has, so. Oh, boy, I don't even see his name in here. That's never good. Yeah, Houston and Lewis, not even showing up in the stat sheet. Yeah, Houston.
Okay. From K. Dizzle, similar to a question we had earlier, why can't Colts win in Jacksonville?
That kind of bothers me. No Justin Houston. Now I got to look this up. He's been super quiet recently.
But the Ravens didn't rush the ball well, so clearly he.
I know, but you don't have him here to be this great. You have him here to disrupt the QB more.
Fair.
So that's 3 straight games. Justin Houston has not recorded a quarterback hit, or a sack, or a tackle for loss, he's had 1 tackle in the last 3 games. in 100 snaps of football.
Hmm.
That's not good. You need some better there. Sorry.
Jags. Why can't the Colts win in Jacksonville? And it might be the worst hotel the team stays at all year. I mean, maybe that's a reason why.
They got that Dave and Buster's right there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that's close by.
You've just gotten whipped up front. And really, it's only been down there. And I guess he does ask in Jacksonville. He got blown out in some of those games. Or Hasselbeck playing quarterback, losing 50 to like 15 one game or something.
Yeah. Louisiana guy. Hi, Kevin. Quick question for the pod. With the Titans releasing Vic Beasley, do you think it's possible the Colts take a look at signing him? I know it's a long shot probably, but Beasley on the D-line with Houston, Buckner, Teray, whenever he comes back, just seems so good to not wonder. Thank you for all your hard work on the pod.
I appreciate that. Thanks for sending in questions, Louisiana guy. You know me, I'm always a fan of kicking tires on former first-round picks, but there seems to be a little bit more there with Beasley and off the field stuff. So I'm going to guess the Colts sit that one out and believe that Kamoko Toure will make a difference.
Jake with the tight end question. If you could commit to only one tight end for next season, who would be your no doubt number one? Doyle, Burton, Cox.
Oh, Cox. Yeah. Because again, you know me, I always have one eye looking towards the future.
Yeah.
Jack Doyle will be 31, I think, in May. Burton, I believe, just turned 30. I think Allie Cox is like 26 or 27. So, yeah, I mean, to me, and yeah, I mean, you guys obviously know what I think of Jack Doyle and the career that he's had. And I even like Burton a little bit. But if I can only commit for one, knowing that one could turn into a couple years, yeah, give me multi.
JD, do you think part of the lack of the rushing attack this year is due to the statuesque presence of Phillip Rivers versus a slightly more mobile Brissett? Not that I'm advocating for Brissett. He's not the future.
Yeah, JD, it's interesting. Part of me is like, wow, Jacoby has the big arm. Phillip doesn't have the big arm. But I also look at the vertical passing game, arm strength, and the stats, and I'm like, well, certainly Rivers is giving you more vertically than Brissett ever did. So, yeah, it's a debate that I've had myself, but I guess I can't. I mean, don't you look at the stats? Rivers is a much more willing vertical passer, and I would think that would open up more of the run game. But he certainly doesn't have the arm. Yeah, that Jacoby does.
Well, that's it for Twitter questions. Let's talk about the week ahead. I know we got a busy week with Beers with Bowen and the Colts playing on Thursday.
Yeah, we do. Colts will be pretty quiet. Practice field. Again, this will be our only pod of the week. They'll walk through today on Monday, probably again on Tuesday, and that's it. And then they travel to Tennessee on Wednesday. So Beers with Bowen, 8 o'clock Wednesday night. Franciscan Health helping us out with that event. 8 o'clock on YouTube. And it'll be interactive. We'll do some questions at the end, give away some Colts Pro Shop gift cards there. And it'll be a mix of kind of first half recap, because this is the midway point. We're 8 games into it. And also looking at Thursday night, and then a little bit more big picture stuff. A lot of big free agents we haven't really talked about, and we're going to hit that pretty hard on Wednesday night. And Chris and I will probably come back late Friday morning with another pod. So, yeah. That's how the week will look. All right, over under 3.5 under par for Tiger Woods at the Masters this week.
Over.
That was quick.
Yep.
Is that your head or your heart?
That's both.
Yeah, that's fair. Ryan Bowen hates Tiger. Do we have a pick?
Go with Adam Scott this week. Led the tour in driving last week. He's hitting that Titleist driver great, hitting the new golf ball really well. Got tons of experience at Augusta. I like Adam Scott this week.
Is Stevie still in the bag?
Stevie's not on the bag. He's got one of his buddies, great guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think he was on the bag anymore.
So.
It'll be fun. I can't wait to watch it over these next 4 days. I appreciate it, Ryan.
Hey, I enjoyed it. Glad to get the call. Hopefully I led or filled in well for Maddie, and I look forward to doing it again.
You did. You, Ross Lubbers, and Maddie. Those have been the 3 out of the bullpen so far. Great efforts, to say the least. Chris Presley will be back on Wednesday for Beers with Bowen, and then Friday for another pod. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you later in the week.